I think that I've now, at 63 years old, suddenly owned that it's not a bad thing to speak your voice.
There was like photos with her and Prince Andrew way back in the day when she was like in her early.
It all began right after midnight, that strange hour when Hollywood's lights dim and London starts to stir. And yet, before the world could even rub the sleep from its eyes, the internet had already exploded. Because Sarah Ferguson, yes, the Duchess of York, had just done the unthinkable. Out of nowhere, she dropped never-before-seen, completely unfiltered pictures of Meghan Markle's infamous yacht days with none other than Prince Andrew. Within minutes, hashtags were trending. Royal reporters who had sworn they were off duty scrambled back to their studios, and gossip podcasts were racing to go live. It was chaos, pure and royal-grade chaos. But in the center of that wildfire, Meghan Markle herself was silent. And that silence? Oh honey, it wasn't calm or composed Duchess energy. It was devastation. One source whispered, "She's in tears. She didn't see this coming, not from Fergie." The betrayal stung, because even though Meghan and Fergie were never particularly close, there was always this unspoken rule in the royal circle. Former duchesses don't destroy each other. They don't drag one another into the mud. They don't cross royal lines. They keep the past tucked away, safe behind those palace curtains. But Fergie, she lit the match.
Time to sort of, in the old days I would have gone, oh shush, no, I'm not a rebel.
The first photo that hit the internet was like a slap heard across continents. There was Meghan, hair blowing in the Mediterranean breeze, laughing, wearing those oversized sunglasses, drink in hand, surrounded by the international elite. And right there, unmistakably young and tanned, was Prince Andrew. And oh, the proximity. It wasn't just casual, it was noticeably close. But the second picture? That one was the bomb. Because in it, Meghan wasn't just mingling. She was whispering something to Andrew, her hand brushing his arm in a way that sent social media detectives into overdrive. The internet turned into a courtroom. Some said it was harmless, others claimed it was intimate. A few even said it was incriminating. But everyone had one question. Why now? Why did Fergie, of all people, release it herself? And that's when whispers started to spread. Fergie, the fiery redhead who had endured years of scandal and humiliation tied to Andrew, had finally reached her breaking point.
On Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's former home, Frogmore Cottage.
She'd been judged for things she didn't do, blamed for choices that weren't hers, and constantly compared to every duchess who came after. But what really pushed her over the edge was watching Harry and Meghan play the victims, publicly painting themselves as the wounded souls of the monarchy, while ignoring certain truths from Meghan's own glittering past. Fergie, it seemed, wanted the world to see the full picture, not the curated fairy tale Meghan had built. So she didn't just leak the photos, she posted them herself, with a line so sharp it could cut glass. Some memories should never be rewritten. Boom. That was it. That was the matchstick that burned down the internet. No subtlety, no palace-approved phrasing, just pure Fergie. Unfiltered, unapologetic, and absolutely done. Within minutes, Meghan's name was trending at the top of Twitter in both the UK and the US. And as the internet split in two, you could feel the temperature rising. Half the people defended Meghan, calling the photos ancient history. The other half demanded answers about her connection with Andrew, her whereabouts on that yacht, and why this entire chapter had mysteriously vanished from her truth-telling interviews and documentaries. Inside her Montecito mansion, Meghan was reportedly pacing the floor, furious, panicked, and shattered. She had spent years constructing the perfect story. The misunderstood duchess, the wronged woman, the survivor. And in a single night, Fergie shattered it. She felt blindsided. And the worst part? She couldn't fight back. Because this time, the attack didn't come from a tabloid or a gossip blog. It came from a fellow duchess, a royal insider with receipts. And those receipts? Oh, they were just getting started. Rumors began to swirl that those two leaked pictures were only the beginning, that Fergie had kept a secret private archive for years, an archive full of photos, letters, and mementos that could completely rewrite the pre-Harry version of Meghan's life. And the thought of that sent shockwaves through both the palace and Meghan's camp. Because as one royal editor bluntly said, you can fight the tabloids, you can even fight the palace, but you can't fight a duchess with a grudge. From that moment on, the game had changed. The palace, ever silent on the surface, was suddenly alive with whispers behind closed doors. Advisors started calling meetings. Every leak was tracked, every whisper logged. Because this wasn't just gossip anymore, this was royal warfare. Fergie, meanwhile, wasn't backing down. She began releasing the yacht pictures in perfect sequence, each one more revealing, more provocative than the last. Meghan's image, the serene, sophisticated humanitarian duchess, began to crumble. Those new photos painted a completely different story. Inside Meghan's crisis team, the panic was real. Calls to PR experts, lawyers, and media consultants flooded in. Drafts of statements were written, rewritten, and torn apart. Every word was debated. Too emotional sounded guilty, too calm looked arrogant. They couldn't find the right tone because there was no right tone. Fergie sensed the panic and pressed harder. Every time Meghan's team tried to calm the waters, Fergie dropped another wave. Each new picture was perfectly timed. The lighting, the framing, the implication, all orchestrated to keep Meghan on the defensive. Social media was relentless. Every frame of Meghan laughing beside Andrew was turned into a meme, dissected by body language experts, and spun into endless threads of speculation. And while the palace stayed publicly quiet, make no mistake, they were watching every move. Inside Meghan's team, tempers flared. Advisors fought over strategy. Should they go public? Should they stay silent? Meghan was reportedly in tears again, torn between fury and humiliation. She thinks this is a targeted hit, one insider whispered. She feels like her reputation's being deliberately destroyed. And maybe it was, because Fergie wasn't releasing these images randomly. She was playing a long game, strategic, deliberate, and surgical. She knew how to keep the story alive. Behind palace gates, senior aides drafted internal memos reminding everyone, the monarchy's power lies in silence. Protocol and dignity are sharper than any headline. And so, while Meghan's world burned, the palace stood still, projecting calm, continuity, and control. But Fergie kept the fire going. Every few days, another image, another caption, another whisper, each one feeding the narrative that Meghan had crafted her public image on half-truths and omissions. By the second week, the damage was undeniable. Public opinion had shifted. Commentators who once defended Meghan were suddenly cautious. Late-night hosts turned her photos into punchlines. Even royal experts began calling it a crisis of credibility. Inside Montecito, chaos ruled. Meghan's PR team was splitting in two. One group begging her to stay silent, the other urging her to speak before it was too late. Every move was a gamble. Too defensive and she'd look guilty. Too defiant and she'd look arrogant. Meanwhile, Fergie stayed calm, almost smug. Her posts were perfectly spaced, her captions vague but biting, her timing impeccable. And every time Meghan's camp tried to move on, Fergie's next post pulled the story right back into headlines. Weeks passed, and still, the internet wouldn't let go. The yacht photos had become symbolic, a cultural moment. People weren't just gossiping about Meghan, they were debating what the images meant. Was it hypocrisy? Was it manipulation? Or just another example of how ambition and royalty never truly mix? Inside the palace, the gears kept turning. Strategists quietly redirected media coverage toward William and Kate's charitable events, keeping the royal machine polished and untouchable. They didn't have to say a word. The contrast spoke for itself. Meghan in chaos, the palace, serene. But inside Meghan's world, the pressure was suffocating. Her PR team couldn't sleep. Every tweet, every photo, every gesture was analyzed. Every public appearance rehearsed down to the blink. She tried to shift focus back to her charity work, to her motherhood, to her causes, but the world wasn't ready to move on. The hashtag storm wouldn't die. Every attempt to reclaim the narrative was met with fresh memes, fresh commentary, and endless side-by-side comparisons with those yacht pictures. By now, even Fergie didn't have to do anything. The internet was doing her work for her. Every day, new analyses surfaced, each one dissecting Meghan's expressions, her outfits, her body language, turning her private laughter into public scandal. The palace, as always, stayed quiet. But behind that quiet was a clear message. Personal scandals fade, institutions endure. And so, as the months went on, the battle of perception raged. Meghan's team worked tirelessly to drown out the noise with humanitarian headlines, carefully curated interviews, photo ops with children, charity events, anything to redirect attention. But the yacht images had already done their damage. They became the permanent backdrop to every news story, every post, every public appearance. The lesson was harsh but clear. In the world of royalty, perception is power. And once you lose control of that, even a duchess can fall from grace. Because in the end, Meghan's PR machine, no matter how polished, couldn't outmaneuver a duchess who played the long game. Fergie didn't just leak pictures, she rewrote the entire narrative. And as the world watched in fascination, one truth remained unshakable. In the monarchy's game of image and silence, the one who speaks last doesn't always win. And oh, sweetheart, when I tell you that night changed everything. I mean everything. Meghan's carefully built palace of perfection, all that polished grace and glowing charm she'd spent years sculpting, it started cracking, one photograph at a time. Every gossip show, every morning talk panel, every online host had their magnifying glass out. They weren't just talking about the yacht anymore. They were asking, who really is Meghan Markle? Fergie had done something no tabloid ever could. She'd flipped the royal spotlight right back on Meghan's past, and the world was eating it up. Some said Fergie was jealous, others said she was finally standing up for herself after being dragged for decades. But between you and me, that woman looked like she'd been waiting a long time for this moment, and she didn't miss her shot. Inside Montecito, though, things weren't looking glamorous. Sources whispered that Meghan barely slept, that she cried at the kitchen counter, pacing around that enormous house while Harry tried to calm her down. PR people were flying in and out like clockwork. The phone phones never stopped ringing and every conversation ended with the same exhausted sigh. What do we do now? Meanwhile, Fergie was sitting back in York, sipping tea and letting the media do the heavy lifting. She didn't have to say a word. Her silence was louder than anything Meghan could post. And that, darling, is what made it sting even more. Because in this game of public image, silence isn't weakness, it's power. And as the weeks rolled by, Meghan's team kept trying. Carefully staged appearances, interviews about motherhood, quotes about kindness. Oh, she tried to shift the focus, but the people weren't buying it. Every picture of her smiling in a floral dress was met with 1,000 comments saying, "But what about those yacht photos?" The internet never forgets, baby. It just waits. And the palace? Oh, they didn't even flinch. The machine kept moving. Ribbon cuttings, charity visits, photo ops with the kids. Not a single word about Meghan, but their silence said it all. It reminded everyone who still held the real crown. Because in the end, Fergie didn't just drop photos, she dropped truth bombs. And Meghan, with all her media training and modern sparkle, couldn't contain the explosion. It's a cruel world in royal circles. One wrong photo, one wrong whisper, and your fairy tale turns into a headline. And for Meghan, that night, under those flashing cameras and endless hashtags, the crown she'd once worn so proudly suddenly felt heavier than ever.